Good morning. Yep.
Probably. Cheers. Cheers. Something like
Good morning and welcome, everybody. It is with great pleasure and privilege that I sit before you on this Wednesday, September 5th. The time is 8:33. Welcome to our budget workshop meeting, and we'll start with an invocation led by Councilman Pete Crisp and Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Mr. Burke.
Stand and bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today as humble servants to not only you but this community. Please keep it in our heart to guide us as we look through these numbers, as we set forth on the path to make our community better. Please bring us closer together and help us to have a meaningful discussion. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, review and discussion of the 2017-2018 fiscal year revised City of Alice budget and 2018-2019 fiscal year proposed City of Alice proposed budget.
Thank you, Mayor. What I would like to do is, we have some things we need to go over today. Going through the funds again like we did before. There's some revisions that we've made and I think y'all got those handouts already, so we'll go through those. We also want to go through some organizational chart changes and some potential capital expenditures that we can make this year, as well as some discussion on the hot funds, Fund 20, and what we want to do, what you guys want to do, and on some of those expenditures. What I'd like to start with is the summary. It's labeled 5C on the handouts. It kind of gives you an idea of where we're ending up. Of course, we're getting closer to the end of the fiscal year, so the revised budget keeps on changing as things come in and bills get paid. But the proposed has changed just a little bit. But did y'all get a copy of this right here yet?
I'm not sure, we just got handed 2 packets.
Was this in their packet?
This is the recap sheet and the insert.
Okay. Well, to give you an idea of where we are in sales tax from last year to this year, and I mean these are just the month by, but it's included in your recap sheet. Last year the budgeted amount was $5.2 million, and the actual, although we have an estimate for the last 3 months that haven't come in yet, the estimated revision is going to be $6.2 million. So there's a difference about $990,000. Now, one thing that's happening on the revised budget, though, is if you notice on page 5C and you go down to the bottom, there's a total general fund expenditures of the adopted budget from last year of $11.6 million. The revised is 12.3. So there's some things that cause that overage. In particular, there's overtime in the fire department, overtime in the police department, and some of the streets work with overtime and things of that sort. And so there's some money that was put into the revision for the software, and about $150,000. So the $990,000 is kind of eaten up in some of those things. Let me see what I have here. There was also an increase of $40,000 that was for the sales tax repayment, and there was $100,000 that was transferred to the benefits trust fund for the unfunded positions. Now, that's on the revised 2000, 18. Now, this year, we're not going to do that unfunded positions on the benefits trust fund, funding those unfunded positions. We have a healthy fund balance there, so there's really not a need to do that. When you first start partially self-funded, you do want to account for everybody that could potentially be hired for that year. Once you have a healthy fund balance, you don't necessarily need to do that. And so this year, we're not going to be doing that unfunded positions, funding the benefits trust fund for healthcare benefits. What we've done on the revised, to give you an idea, also back to the 5C page, the total expenses for fiscal year proposal for fiscal year 19 stayed roughly about the same. We've estimated a difference in a lot less overtime for the firefighters because we did have additional firefighters that we have proposed on this budget. So the expenses stayed the same. There are, for fiscal year 19 though, the overage in sales tax, if we have a $1.2 million over in sales tax, that's not necessarily getting spent. We do want to save some, or we want to earmark it. So on our budget, what we talked about last time is there are places where we're putting that money that's not necessarily it's not spent. It's something that if it does come in the way we're proposing, then we'll have money for street improvements, for depreciation fund, for capital expenditures, and also repayment for additional sales tax. And so, to give you an idea, that's where why this is kind of staying the same from last year to this year. And we have the overage in sales tax. And if we could go on your budget book to, let's see, to 80B. Page 80 on there, and that's what we showed last time. Is that, Vanessa, are we on that right page? Okay. Let's see, we got something revised. Yes.
Yes.
80, 80B shows two of them, the street improvement fund and the depreciation fund. Those two under proposed show the 120,000 each. That is part of the that we're more accurately proposing how much sales taxes are going to come in. But those, if it drops or if it lowers, those things just won't get funded. So that's where the money's coming out of on paper, is 120,000 for each of those funds, street improvements and depreciation. And the other capital improvement, we placed it on page 19B, and it's called official or administrative. I'm sorry, that's for the sales tax additional repayment if that comes in. And so on 19B, you'll see that there's an additional from revised to proposed. We're having $314,000 in official and administrative. And if we do get more sales tax repayments, that's where it'll come from. 19B, 5610.
I think when I got the email, I didn't get B.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
is it? Do we have it on?
my
there?
numbers aren't.
Okay,
my
you
numbers
have
aren't
242.
yeah, I still have 242. on
Yeah.
this. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
You have maybe a printout that you can give me, please, of the B's?
That's going to account for what, Michael?
Thank you.
That is for if we have additional sales tax repayment that need to come in. It's pre-budgeted to the tune of maybe if we have an extra $100,000 that we have to pay.
It'll be in there.
It'll be in there, so we won't have to.
No problem.
It's worry. And if it doesn't come in, then that just sits at reserves.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that same page, can I ask a question on the ambulance service contract? I thought that was a wash.
Yeah, that thought we were getting a zero on
I thought we were getting a 0, so why are we at 91,000?
That's the 2018 revised
that. Oh, because we paid part of
For-
it throughout the year, right?
throughout the year, right? But on proposed, we have 0.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
That's just payment from last year?
yeah, last year.
Okay.
We renewed that contract when? I'm just curious. That was, what, 2 months ago, 3 months ago now?
The last payment was made for the month of April.
April. So that was for 8 months. October, November, December, 7 months. Just gives an idea. Okay.
Our initial, and I can give you a little bit more. The initial payment was 14,000, and then they lowered it to 12,600. So we had about 1, 2, 3, 5 payments at the 12,600.
Do y'all have any questions on the general fund as y'all went through it?
Council, any questions?
Let me see.
Can you tell me what miscellaneous revenue would consist of?
On what page?
General fund, I'm sorry, 5B?
On miscellaneous revenue, we have a variety of things. That's where your interest income is. Also like the leases for the neighborhood facility, which is the Old Boys and Girls Club.
Very much.
Sometimes when we have an insurance claim and they do pay us back, some of it goes in the miscellaneous. Vendor refunds, restitutions for like illegal dumping, we get some money from the county. And also from the appraisal district, there's a dealership special inventory excess tax, and we get that about once a year. It's about $2,500. But the bulk of it is your interest income.
And the breakdown is on page 8.
Yes, sorry, 8 and 9. 8 and 9.
Is the breakdown.
Perfect.
Question on the 2018 revised in regards to city council and us. We had cut back a lot of things and it showed that we adopted a 5,500. How did we jump up to 12,600? What was that? What's that 7,1 difference there?
Let's see.
We had increase on the travel expenses, and that was just in case y'all might be attending some.
Well, I know that we went up on the proposed. I guess I'm curious how we spent money
y'all-
this year.
Oh, how you spent it so far?
Yeah. On the 2018 revised, we're over by 7,000.
What we did there is we added about over 3,000 in travel, and now y'all have not spent it yet. It's there if y'all do. Y'all have until the end of September. I didn't know if y'all would be attending TML.
TML's in October, so we're good.
Is it in October?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Not a big deal because I had thought it was in September for about a month also.
Yeah, and that can get,
Okay, well, I just wanted to see it, if somehow we managed to go over. Yeah, so, okay, that's fine.
And if you want us to change anything, just let us know.
Okay.
another thing to look at, if you look at 5C again, we do have an excess of revenues over expenditures on this proposal of about $315,000. And so there's some things that we may need to add if we wanted to do some capital improvements with that money. If there's some things, maybe a couple of police cars that we may need. I know there's some mowers or some light equipment that may need to be purchased, and so want to let you know that there's some money in there if we need to make some changes or add some things on there. I know that there's some the radios for dispatch
Yes.
are something they were needing.
There was a radio system for the dispatch, for support services, they were saying they needed it to interface, that once it broke down, they were gonna kind of be at a loss, so they really needed that, and it was about $30,000.
And also looking at the potential of doing vehicle leasing. I know that we had the number, Roland had been working on that for a while, and you want to give them an idea of what the dollar amount per vehicles you had looked at.
Let me calculate per vehicle. It was 140,000 for 25 vehicles, but they're divided in emergency and non-emergency.
Right.
So of course your emergency vehicles are a little bit more, but they do both.
Is this like with fleet safety?
This was with Enterprise. Now I have not done comparative
If we could
pricing.
explore
Yes.
fleet, I want to say it's fleet safety, and that's something that I was going to bring to the council and you guys to explore a lease program. Because to me, it just makes sense, instead of having old vehicles that obviously will just sit there like across the street.
If you have a contact, that'd be great.
Okay, I have
You
one
said
of the
it was-
officers. Fleet safety?
But you said how much, 100 and what for,
40,000 for 25 vehicles
and that's for the year?
for per year, yes.
And you said that was emergency and non-emergency when you looked into that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's divided, I don't remember the cost from the top of my head, but it was like 5,000 and 7,000 for the emergency, or more like 7 and 5. Basically what you're doing is paying the depreciation
Yeah,
every year.
yeah. I think that would be a great venue.
What we were wanting to look at, if you guys want to move forward, is to kind of some of that 315, we could earmark, 100 or 120 or a number to come up with, and have that match the number of vehicles that we can get for on a lease program. You know, include some. I know that we certainly need about 3 or 4 police vehicles, so that may be something to consider. And if you guys would like us to do that, of course, on the 11th, we could bring that back with some of the revisions that you guys want to do today.
Okay. Michael, on administration, am I reading that correctly? Did we go up 86,000?
On expenses, on 104,
Am I correct on that?
are you looking at 5C?
I'm looking at 104.
Yeah.
5C, 5B.
Okay, 5C is a new one that you should have in front of you.
It's a
Let's
small package they just gave us right there.
see what 5C is over here. Where we went from revised 228 to 230 on the proposed. Yeah, so 5C still is the same. The administration, is that changing, is that some of the personnel that we changed?
Administration, which is the 104, is, it's a city manager's position, and,
Collections and compliance.
yes, I can think of that, yes.
Which also reminds me, I think this new sheet will also have under the general fund, we had moved over the custodian over to the general fund, and we added a position of a general maintenance technician. And that's going to be on, I think y'all had that last one, 17B. It's ready, we've contracted with somebody ready to start in that position as on contract. And they've been spending quite a bit of time, actually throughout the city, here sometimes, and some of the repairs that need to happen at the pool as well. And so he's been busy running around cleaning things up and repairing things that need to be done. And it kind of saves a lot of, Victor's crew would normally do some of those things, but in the course of their regular work, you've got to pull somebody aside and say, by the way, let's work on this project. And some of these are smaller, one-person type of projects. So it really helps a lot to not interfere with the regular operations of what a lot of Victor's crews are doing in streets and public works. The interfund transfers also are something that changed, and we talked about that last time. We did want to go over a little bit on what we kind of need to do moving forward on those interfund transfers. It'd probably be good to go kind of into the the golf course improvement, and the golf course fund and the multi-use fund. Okay, and I know we had talked a lot about those before, and when we left the last meeting, our city attorney and I, especially our city attorney, talked to TML attorneys, and we got a clearer opinion on how those need to be handled. So right now, if you kind of look at the golf course, let's go to page 138.
No A, no B, no C.
Not on that.
138.
Should be in here.
Original.
Right.
Yeah.
So on 138, we have an interfund transfer for the proposed of 112. And remember from last time, that's an administrative cost of $56,500, which is coming out of the golf course to pay for everything that happens outside of the personnel that are there. Finance, administration, and human resources and things of that sort. And so that's an expense that wasn't there before. But to properly account for it, it should be there, and it's really a wash because the golf course is operating at a loss, so that goes out, and then it comes back in under interfund transfer. So the revised budget is showing, was done differently last year, so the revised is showing $66,000 of an interfund transfer to make that fund whole. In essence, we would say maybe zero it out to balance it, right? And on 2019 proposed, we have 112. So we're estimating the loss to be 55,881. So 55,000 plus the 56,500 is what gives you the 112. That's the anticipated loss for the golf course. And we don't carry that over this year moving forward. There'd been talk on whether we should fund that loss or not fund it, and I'll let John kind of speak to that real quick so we can kind of clarify that.
I apologize, I don't feel very well today, but Michael has to present a balanced budget. He can't, it's in the local government code under section 102. It's also in Constitution, 3 articles. Article 3, Article 8, and Article 11 require us to have a balanced budget. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't record keep on our ledger and show where the money's come out, but the fiscal document as presented has to show that we have covered all expenses. That's our proposed in our final revised budget, and so he has to present it to you all without a bottom line negative number. Now, the transfers are all in there and shows where the money has come out, but we have to zero those balances out.
So, and looking at it, so to give you an idea on the golf course, we have, and it carried over, a loss is carried over on the golf course just like the multi-use. We have a $172,000 carryover loss. Now, from the conversations, that should be zeroed out, and what it does, though, it doesn't affect our cash because it's already accounted for. I mean, it's accounted for because that money was spent, but it does affect our net position as far as what we have in reserves on paper, not our cash. So the same thing, we look at the multi-use, it has a carryover of $297,000. And so if we correct that, it'll have an impact, and I'll show you where those two will have an impact. It'll be, well, on page 5C. We have 3.2, or our proposed budget will have $3.2 million in reserves, and it'll be 3.12 months. It'll affect this number because the interfund transfer will increase, it'll change from an interfund transfer here on this sheet. So that'll lower our months of reserves. That's the impact it has, but cash-wise, we've spent the expenses and it's out. So, I guess the way to put it is the 3.12, if you have a negative fund imbalance on those funds that you spent money on, this 3.12 is not really accurate. It's really not 3.12. It shows it because we haven't put it over there. And so when we come back with the 11th, we'll have that adjusted on there as well. And so it'll lower our reserves to probably a little bit, almost to what we had proposed last year, probably the 2.8, 2.79, 2 point, something like that on reserves.
And what caused the increase this year by almost $270,000?
The increase in reserves?
No, in the I'm looking at the wrong one. Intergovernmental transfers is what I was looking at. Sorry.
Oh, the interfund, the 990?
982.
Okay, let me see. I think are you looking at 5B?
I'm sorry, 270. I said 370. I'm sorry, 270. I'm looking at 5C. I thought that might have been it. But
Yeah,
that's not
the
near
interfund
enough.
transfers on 990. I'm looking at 990 where it went from 428 to 654. Okay. And Vanessa, those are the 120s?
I'm sorry.
990 on the revised? That's where we have the 120s that we're putting over to?
Yes, on the general fund, yes.
General fund. The 120 for streets and the 100, those excess for streets and capital improvements on that depreciation fund.
You keep saying 990. I'm talking 992.
Oh, on Fund 50?
No, on the 5C.
It's 990. It's 990.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the wrong line. You're right. Sorry.
Okay.
Because we do have a
Yeah, give me-
992 in the utility fund, but that's to AWA.
I just kept looking at the bottom line and the bottom line. Yeah, I got you. You're correct. There's because it's a wash across. Okay. So that's the 120. times
The
two.
120 is per fund. Those three, the 120 that you're proposing, the transfers.
Yes, we did exactly 120 on the streets, the depreciation and the
sales-
official.
repayment of the
The
sales
sales
tax.
repayment,
Okay.
yeah.
So do you have something that you're considering for how to correct these negative carryovers? Are you going to propose something to the council or
Oh,
how we're going to handle that?
Yeah, on the
or-
11th, on the next proposal,
You'll-
on the next revised and the proposed, it'll just show, it'll be a difference in interfund transfer. It'll show up, it'll be a plus here and a minus there, or however you want to look at it, yeah.
Okay.
Like the golf course will have there'll be a 172 that'll come in, and a 172 that'll come out in the interfund transfer. And so that number will lower. I mean, it'll look like, as we change a few things, what is it? Sure. Yeah, this end fund balance on 5C will be about $2.7 million.
Michael, if I may, I would probably propose instead of zeroing it out all 1 year, is if we can spread it out, maybe like 50,000 per year until we zero it out, so it doesn't take a big hit on our fund balance at the very end. Because you're going from 3 point
Yeah, I mean,
2.
to 2 point something, and I'd rather, because that affects our rating and so forth, because when Moody's comes in or we do our financial rating, they look at all that, at the outlook. They'll look at your fund balance, they'll look at, you know, and they may give us, possibly give us a negative outlook if we don't have a good fund balance. So I would propose doing it a small amount every year until we zero it out. Because that didn't happen within 1 year.
Right. And we talked about that. It's, what I would say is on the revised and on the proposed, you know, we have those transfers out. Okay, there's no question. John, would you say that that would be a gray area to do the 50
Yes,
at a
sir.
time?
I would.
Okay. So if you guys want to do something like that, then, you know, if John looks at it, you know, from the legal standpoint that we can, then we can do that. And Roland's right. I mean, it's not going to affect it as much. But just know that the true number, you know, really is what we have is a 2.7 something months of reserves. You know, we do the 50, it'll be like the 3.02 or something. But, so yeah, if that's what you guys want to see, we can certainly let's spread it out over time on clearing that.
I mean, realistically, we know where we stand, but we also have to protect our city and its ratings. So, you know, dropping almost $500,000, I got 470-ish at one time would, I mean, kill our rating when we're on our way to build it back up. Yeah, realistically, we know where we stand, but we also have to protect our city's interest in the fact that when we have to apply for these loans that we're doing right now, and if we present a budget that shows that we're actually gone down again, it's not gonna vote well for us. You know, these are things that have built up over years and years and years, and I think that if we give us a little bit of time to build them back, you know, maybe next year we have enough money that we can do an amendment and do a little bit more than 50. But I think right now that a minimal approach is the best. I think that's a good idea, Roland. So I think that's the way that we need to look at it for now is to protect the interests of the city moving forward, especially with this forgiveness loan that we're really trying to get for the wastewater.
Yeah, 470.
Yeah, 470-109 is what I showed.
Yeah, and just to know, I mean, when we send, if they're going to look at this, I mean, on paper, yeah, we will have the 3.0 whatever, but when we send our budget out to any of the financing agencies, I mean,
They're going to dig.
they're going to say, okay, well, you got 3.1, 3.2, and let me subtract the 469. It'll probably happen anyway, but it wouldn't hurt to try to.
Yeah, if we legally can do it, I would rather, because if they deal with this all the time, they'll see like, okay, they're making headway, and
Yeah.
this is how they're doing it. So versus, oh, here they are again. What happened? And
Right.
they went from a boom to a bust, double bust. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we've lost. But you know, the thing too is that realistically too is when they do that math, you can always say, look, we have a method to approach to remove that.
Yeah.
We're just not doing it all at once because it'll hit us too hard. And I mean, you can always explain things away too. Because if we start doing it now where we're already covering this year's deficit by transferring the 19,000 and the 28 or whatever it was, I can't remember off the top of my head, to cover those, we're not adding to it. Plus, we're looking at maybe making an adjustment to cover another portion of it, and we just keep moving forward like that.
A $50,000 amount, which Roland and I had talked about before, that's like a 10-year payout, or 10-year correction time. You know, and there can be a schedule for that also to be kind of an addendum that y'all can see also if you want to see that.
I think that would be the safest, only because we're budgeting based on we didn't change the collection rate, right, on the property taxes. We left it at 95?
93.
Was it 90?
93.
93.
Right.
Okay, so we didn't change it from, okay.
Last year.
And then what was the difference that we had as far as the values? That we had a little-
8,000.
Was it just 8,000?
Yeah, it
that
was
we
a
were
di-
gonna
Oh, yeah.
get
It was a
in
difference of like $8,000.
From last year.
8,058.
And then, the other thing is we're budgeting on the sales tax
Right.
more than what we did last year. So I think that would be the safest route to do.
Speaking of sales tax, the additional half-cent sales tax, is that customary to always have that in there? Or is that an addition?
Yeah, that was voter approved some years back. It's basically just called sales tax or reduced property tax. And so we're maxed on that. That's a half-cent sales tax to reduce property tax. That's where a lot of municipalities can choose to do other things with that, and sales tax for economic development, sales tax for things of that sort. So, and I wanted, guessing in the early 80s maybe, when that was done, that was the route that they chose to do. Sales tax, reduced property tax.
So we're not proposing an increase, it's just.
It's labeled differently because that's what it is, yeah. If some cities may have that half-cent for something else, it would be labeled differently,
Okay.
yeah.
And I think there's even an additional 0.25 cent that the city has, but we passed off to the county. And that's standard practice also, if I'm not mistaken, too, for a lot of cities.
We've been
correct?
doing for a little while.
Not a whole lot of counties get that. There's several, but not most time of the cities take all of it, so they get.
How has that changed?
It'd have to be a referendum, have to be voted.
For the voters.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be good.
One thing on the,
Oh, real quick, I wanted to go
Oh,
back
yeah.
and say something. If there's a 470 payout, you said maybe roughly 10 years. There's two different accounts that we're looking at there. One of them's 170 something, if I'm not mistaken. One of them's 2 something. What if we just did a 10-year, 10% payout over time? So it's just 10 years, you take in 47 and 10% of it pays off a portion of it pays off the golf course, and every year it drops down by 10% until your 10-year payout is done, as opposed to just setting a dollar amount at 70 and working it. Just say that, to $29,761 is coming out this year, and that's going straight to the multi-use. 17,000 is of the 50 that we're talking about. 17,000 whatever is going straight to the golf course, and every year it's a 10% reduction, as opposed to a solid 50, and the numbers, are changing every year. We're just seeing a 10% drop off every year moving forward. It's a 10-year payout,
That could
10%
work.
drop off. Because it's basically, like you said, the same thing you're looking at, except you're a $30,000 difference on year 10 versus just doing $47,000 every year moving forward, and 17 and 29, 10% every year it's dropping off. I missed my mouth.
This might be a silly question. Crossing guards? Do we have crossing guards?
We have 2 right now.
2? Where are they?
I don't know where they're at, but I know we do have 2 of them. One of them, one of them I know, I believe he does the parks too. He drives around on a mule, I believe. But I couldn't tell you which schools they're located at.
I wonder if we could find out, because and at the park, I don't think we would need a crossing guard at the park, other than,
It's not a crossing guard.
it's labeled crossing guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fund that's labeled that.
What is it?
It was, something else, because I asked you about that last time.
Yeah, the gentleman at the parks, and we're labeling him a crossing guard, but he does do kind of marshal at the parks and then goes to some of the schools, so it's not just.
It's not just the parks.
Yeah,
But I'm gonna text them and see, do you know which?
yeah.
I had asked about that last time because it was labeled that way.
It would be nice. Also, Michael, on 105, page 18B, there's a catering fee under our custodians.
Well, that's not just custodians. The general, you're on 105, that's general service, so that's kind of like a catch-all for the general fund. So, the catering might be even when they buy waters, like if we have like a TML, like we had a little activity, not activity, but a little ethics training about a month ago. So they went and bought water, and anything kind of related to food, we kind of coded as catering. But in 105, that's kind of everything for also the city hall. So anytime we have any sort of, the AC goes down or, oh, and it's also coffee.
It's the coffee service for City Hall.
Oh, coffee service as well, yeah. And we, when we host something, yeah, if we do have to have some meals, I know we're asked by the TCMA regional person to see if we could host a meeting here for like 14 people. And, you know, we would pay for the lunch for them, and it would come out of this fund, yeah.
Got it. I know we took away our catering and there's $500 in there. Council catering.
We had left that because
Oh,
we
so the
said so we
last
could
one.
have,
I think it's
That's
water.
hilarious.
They still do buy waters
Water
and
and
drinks and just, I think.
Expensive water and
For
nuts.
the meals.
Oh my God, I didn't eat $500 worth of nuts. And there's like 250 wearing apparel. Where's my
It's really
t-shirts?
just the water, trail mix, the drinks, things like that. Ice probably.
I'm just checking. Pay up. All right. Also, any questions on general fund? Mr. Molina?
18B, 105, bank charges. Sorry, yeah, 105 bank charges.
they're supposed to clean that.
18B bank charges.
So $52.99 bank charges.
My bad. Yeah, 52.99.
What page are you looking at?
18B.
Okay.
18B?
It's
Those-
not just bank charges, it's also credit card
Credit card fees
charges.
and-
Like for the customers to, be
To
paying
pay.
with credit cards and things like that.
Merchant services.
Merchant
That's the word,
services.
sorry. But we kind of just coded it bank charges, but
But
it,
we made changes last year, right?
Yeah.
Oh, when we were like.
They were high, yeah.
It's showing actual 10,000 back in 17, and now it's like double or something almost.
Have you changed?
The more that people utilize their debit cards and so forth downstairs, then the
Okay.
higher.
So more fees on our part, or? Wow.
More, yes, the more that the customer uses debit cards.
And have we seen an increase in collection? Because I know that we can do, with the debit cards too, they can do like auto draft or,
We started doing over the phone payments, so you're getting less traffic and more credit cards.
Easier for our citizens to pay their
it's
bills.
more convenient.
So every swipe is a charge, yeah. That makes sense.
a couple pennies here, a couple pennies there, it adds up. But
We
if we're
also
actually
did-
getting paid
If we're
more,
collecting
if we're
the-
getting
yeah.
paid more,
And it's not too much, but we also did, ordered like checks and things like that, your check stock, and we coded it here.
this is all under general fund, correct?
Yes.
But why wouldn't that be under like utility billing or?
We do split it, so it is kind of, we split it between general fund, utility fund, and solid waste.
And we did that when, last year, or has it been that way always?
Last year, we kind of started.
Okay, that would be the increase from 10,000 to 20,000 because it started getting split last year, right?
Yes, we started splitting it.
Because that was one of the questions is how did it go from 10,000 in
We
17
used to-
actual?
Yeah, we used to just put, like the client analysis service charge, which is kind of like the bank's fee for the accounts. And then we kind of did split it between the three funds. this past year.
Today it's split, or it used to be split?
No, we just started splitting it,
This budget we're in right now, not the one we're.
Yes.
So this should be less then, right?
Well, I'm sorry. Well, we used to just charge the general fund the client analysis fee. So it's just kind of a smaller fee. Now we're splitting like the credit cards and all that between the three. So the credit card and all that used to just hit, I think, utility and solid waste. But we kind of included the general fund this past year.
So that made it jump up by $10,000, but we're still reducing it. And that $2,000 reduction that we're seeing, is that the true bank fees, that client service fees that we're
Yes.
seeing? That's a reduction in those client service fees?
Yes, those are
Well, if you recall, now that we're sweeping, we're gonna be earning
more interest.
more interest, so that it offsets the plan analysis fee, so you won't pay plan analysis fees.
Okay.
And I am working on closing out some more old bank accounts. They're old construction bonds, so they have very small balances, and it's just, yes, so I'm working on that right now.
Because at one point, I think we had 20 plus accounts.
I did actually, 2 years ago, I cleared out a bunch of old INS accounts, and then now I'm closing out the construction part. So every time they would get a bond to work on streets or anything, they would set up a construction bank account, which is to pay out the vendors like as they were doing the work, and then they would set up like a debt service checking account. So for everyone, there was always 2 accounts. So I closed out all those old bonds because most of those had been either, they were grouped when we did the refinancing. So I got rid of a bunch of those, and now I'm trying to work on closing out all those old bond accounts. And that should go down too.
Did we ever close the old electric and gas that we weren't using? Did we do that? I know we had asked.
The gas,
yes.
yes.
We did a lot of that, yeah.
Okay.
We did an audit
Clean
throughout
up.
the year and we closed a lot of it.
We're trying to clean up as much as
Yeah,
possible.
those little fees here and
Well, we
there,
got
they
that.
add up.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it does add up.
Internet doesn't seem to be a lot on the general fund, but I'm just curious. At one point, we had talked about this GTech solution. Did we ever start utilizing that at all and see any benefit from it? Jim, if you don't mind, if you could, please.
Yes, actually, we've got GTech installed at all the locations. We haven't been able to shut off the foremost yet because we're still on our old phone system, which goes through that. So we've put in the port to change to the new phone system, which is going to be the one in the cloud. They're kind of dragging their feet. I should find out today whether it's going to happen this week or next week. At that point, we can cut off all the internet from Foremost and then go with the GTech. And then, of course, we have that piece at Spectrum. They're putting 100 meg fiber in. Should be in, well, maybe not till the end of November, I think is their absolute deadline on that. But I've tested the new phones at the GTech, through GTech at some of these remote locations. It seems like it's going to work fine, so we shouldn't have to augment that with something else, I hope.
So that may go down too. So
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I was just curious about, because I know
Budgeted the
that,
same. We just budgeted the same.
and that's over a year and a half ago that we started that project. And of course, that was a GTech thing. We had to wait for them to get all their towers up.
Right, and then we were stuck with our phone system. We couldn't switch over.
Yeah.
So we did that.
Okay. Yeah, well, just, let's put it it's across the board. Say again? Yeah, that's just about internet as a whole. Yeah.
So on 25C, can we clarify 5642?
Jim, I think this one's for you also.
Which one is it? 56.
Software.
Software maintenance agreement. We went from 18,000 to 76,000.
Oh, are you on the utility fund, on Fund 50?
No, we're on the general fund, 25.
Oh, okay, that is because, remember, next year we get Encode, we will still have to pay for Springbrook also. For the first year, you have to kind of have both of them running. So this next year, it's going to go up, but the following year, it'll go back down to just one software.
Because we did spend a lot last year. And so what happened?
On, actually, well, yearly, the cost is about 56,000. So actually, we split it between finance and UB because we're the bigger users of the software. So we do split it. You'll see it on finance and then in utility bill.
So it's bigger than that. So it's like 100,000 probably?
Well, the annual cost is about 50,000, but like I said, next year it's going to be like 56,000 plus the Encode also.
And that's also not only because, I mean, you do have to overlap because that's how you
Yes.
interface and make sure that everything's coming out right.
Over, yes.
But we're also, because we're not be able to do the switch over to Encode till April-ish, you know, what is the last half of the year
But then
for
we
us?
should see a relief.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
after.
next year.
Okay.
It's just that first year we'll have to have two.
Because we know that this is the right one, right?
But we're one of the last two cities using Springbrook, is what
Yeah.
we were told.
Mr. Dahmer
Right.
said he can ask if they can prorate it
We
too.
can ask Acela, because if we don't use it for 12 months, then
Right.
there's no reason why. we should
Yeah,
do this.
I would definitely try to do that just because that's a huge expense.
Because that's an annual maintenance.
Yes, it's annual.
And we're not
And we're not gonna be
receiving
here
the
for long.
benefits from it.
Well, if we're not gonna switch over to, so when are we starting the Encode installation? Not until April. So the overlap doesn't even actually start until April. So we'll have April, May, June, July, August. So there is no relief there because we have to utilize it for the whole year, basically.
Yeah, but he's saying prorate it till we actually start, because this kicks in October, correct?
October, we'll start, well, we have to really sit down and have a conversation with Encode, because there's some that they don't favor the actually running them parallel.
But we'd still want to just to,
That's how I've always, yeah.
yes, just to make sure, run like maybe at least 2 payrolls, just to make sure everything's
Sure.
calculating the same and things like that.
But like Mr. Ramos said, if we could prorate, if we could at least ask if we could, because we're paying for something we're not using.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Use prorate Encode
Yeah.
for the first 6 months that we're not
6
even
months.
installing it.
Yeah, there's nothing going on and we're already paying an annual fee.
Well, I would expect kind of to say that's when our contract would start. Would be in April, the day that we start the install.
The minute, yeah.
It's actually something we could add to the contract and no problem.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah, because, I mean, we shouldn't start a contract until we actually start the install.
We're using it.
So,
Right, Mr. Sparza?
Yeah, Jim will get on it quick, right, Jim?
That's a big, that's a big truck. Thank you. Now, still in the general fund, police administration, jail contract?
That is because the county owns the jail. So anytime we arrest and we take them over to their jail, we have to pay a daily fee to the county to house our inmates.
Okay.
So it's just depending on how many people are arrested and how many are not. And so we get a monthly bill from them.
Yeah. We need to be able to put them in jail, though. Because I know we have issues with that. And if we're paying for a service, I would like to receive.
Well, we pay per, but it's
Per night.
per
Per
night.
inmate, per night.
Per night.
Per
or
day.
actually, not, oh, it's
So-
not, it's contract
It's not a
per,
contract.
per overnight stay.
Yeah, it's only when we have somebody there, so that's kind of an estimate of what we've done
So
year
it's
in,
an
year out.
estimate, okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
it is an estimate.
if they're full and we can't send anybody there, then this is gonna go down unless we send them somewhere else, but there, it is full and it is a
So we
problem.
as, could we contract with, like, Nueces? Or, yes?
Yeah.
You
I would
you
like
could,
to-
well, the situation, the problem that we ran into with that, Mayor, was that recently they had a juvenile, it really wasn't a juvenile, that he wasn't 18 yet, that they had arrested. And the jail laws didn't allow the sheriff, they didn't have a place where they could put him safely. And so they had to transport him the PD, they wouldn't accept him. The PD had to go ahead and transport him to Live Oak County, and then there was a big brouhaha about when he was ready to be bonded out, we were going to have to go pick him up and bring him back since he was our drop-off, and it was just a big mess. We talked to Duval County about doing it as well, but nothing's really come out of it. In the past, what the Sheriff's Department has done is they've accepted the inmate and then go ahead and then transfer the inmate out themselves, and then they're responsible for transport. And speaking to the sheriff, and he's correct, that even when they do that, then they can go, even though he doesn't actually stay in the facility, the fact that they accept him could make them out of compliance. And so his concerns are that, so.
Yeah, no, John, this was something else. It was very concerning that we couldn't take in anybody that weekend. I didn't like that. It was kind of like the purge came to my mind. And so I would like to see other options, where we don't have this situation where, nobody can go to jail today.
Backup contingency,
Yeah, like just, especially since we're paying, the county, and I just feel like if we could somehow, whether it's Duval or Nueces or just somebody, that we could have a backup plan. We don't currently have that, I guess.
Not that I'm aware.
No, and we don't. We've been talking to Duval County, trying to get something situated with them. I mean, you all have an agreement almost, or.
We can house anywhere. They can do it on a case-by-case basis and house it anywhere as necessary. It's always best if we have those fees outlined in a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, or an interlocal, so that we go forward from there. And I know that the police chief had talked to the sheriff. They got me involved a little bit, but we just haven't been able to finalize everything. But we'll work on that.
I would like that. That was concern. Thank you.
I'm gonna jump back if we can real quick. And if we can just explain how we've gained so much efficiency, or what's going on here with the collection agency fees. We're dropping it off by 19,000. What are we doing that makes it better, or are we shifting that to another fund, or what exactly we're doing?
Which page are you on?
8C, if you would, please. Yeah. I mean, that's a good, it's a little chunk, but if we're doing something better, it's always good to know how we're handling things a little bit better. The last one on the section right. Yeah, it was a $19 decrease. Yeah, I'm just curious.
Oh, the agency fees?
Yes.
That decreased because I think that's the Lineburger. The Lineburger, they canceled the agreement with them, so, and we didn't know, if, we might get into an agreement with somebody else or anything, but usually that's how it worked. They would send us, I believe,
So
like
basically municipal, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
That's municipal court.
is doing it in-house.
Handling in-house.
And they're doing a pretty good job. so.
That's great. That's awesome.
Wow.
That's a
For
good
collections.
savings. Mhm.
Okay.
That was a big concern last
Yeah.
budget. Mhm.
Okay.
Awesome, great.
That's good. More efficient handling in-house, okay?
Yeah.
Mr. Sparks, did we make any changes? I know last budget, we had discussed the collections where we're collecting in the front and then in the back on the alley. Did we make any changes this year, or?
The garbage collection.
in the garbage?
There's been some places where we may have gone back to the back. There's probably been both. We've probably done both. Robert?
Some people prefer it in the front, some people prefer it in the back. It's not really feasible, but, it's up to you all to decide what you want us to do on that. The places where we can't go back are in the easements themselves. Easements are 10 foot wide, or trucks are 8 foot wide, so you don't have enough room for trash cans there.
I thought they did something like that a few years back where they were telling everybody that they really had to put them in the front. I mean, hasn't this been something that's already been addressed?
Well, no, it's gone.
It was an attempt
There was
by
another
a
one.
previous administration to have everybody come to the front. That's never been the intention of the city of Dallas. There are some alleys that are 20 foot wide where we can, of course, work in that alley. It's an alley by definition and by planning. Easements are only for utilities where you have sewer, water, gas, telephone. And your sewer, water, and gas may not be very deep enough not to get damaged by our garbage trucks.
Right.
I mean, even some of you discussed this at last budget hearing, where yes, we want to be able to consolidate these routes where we don't have to run a truck in the alley and the street.
Yeah, there's a lot of places in town where we did at one time just go straight front pickup for some places, even though they had an alley. And in the course of time, some people wanted the alley pickup, and certainly we could, so we kept it front and back. It'd be good to standardize it. There's never been a council directive where everybody is front, everybody's alley, whatever it would be. It's always been, our Robert and his crew kind of know where they can go and where they can't. There are some places that our trucks have a hard time going in, and that's why it had changed to the front pickup on a lot of places. But no, percentage-wise, Robert, what would you say that is front versus back in the whole city?
Right now, we're probably at about 65% front, 35 rear.
I guess more importantly is how many, what's the percentage of your secondary trips, because you have some of them putting in the front and some of them putting it in the back. I guess the biggest thing is because we're making two trips. That's
Two different vehicles.
two different vehicles,
In the same area.
and then in some cases, like you said, where there's an easement and they don't want to put it in the front because your truck can't go into the back. Now a pickup truck or a smaller, lighter duty truck has to go pick that up out of the alley.
Actually, we have to send a guy walking in to go get it and bring it out.
See, those are the ones that concern me more than anything. It's
Correct.
not the front back, it's the accessibility. We need to set a standard for accessibility,
Well, we
not
actually
for
have
front
one.
versus back.
We already have one, it's a city ordinance.
Okay? And that's the one I guess I was
That's
talking
the only thing
about.
we're trying to follow, the city ordinance that has been set popularly 30 years ago. And we're still trying to get that corrected. Like I said, we had one city manager come in and he felt that everybody should put the trash can in front because it worked at the city where he come from. But where he came from didn't have alleys or easements.
Right.
I
That
think-
were not incorporated into the cities like we do have here.
I think we need to revisit that accessibility. It'll cut time, it'll save money on pickup, it'll save time on pickup. I think this is the same point that was made at the last budget process. I think we need to pull that ordinance up,
Of course.
bring it forward in another meeting, and then set the standard for easements versus alleys. And
And the thing is that we've made these changes personnel-wise. We've reduced our staff to the point where we can't do that going back into alleys or easements without adding either an additional truck or an additional crew. You know, it's going to cost the department more money to be able to do that.
right. So I think we just need to visit that. If we need to revisit the ordinance as a whole,
Clarify it and make sure.
clarify
that
it and get it done right. Have you and your boots on the ground.
Yes.
Let us know where we can and cannot travel and set a true standard. This will help our city and reduce cost. Because that's twice a week. That's twice a week that they're making two trips to certain locations, so.
Okay.
Going to the pound. Do we pick up Orange Grove and San Diego animals?
I think they can drop off. The county, Orange Grove, San Diego, I believe they can drop off, and there is a small fee for them to drop off.
wonder if we can revisit fees in that department. I just find that we're,
Generous.
yeah, and in the meantime, we're affecting the quality of care, animal care in our establishment. I just feel like if we're picking up Jim Wells County, we're only allotting 1,000. If we're picking up animals in the county, or Orange Grove or San Diego, we need to charge correctly.
I don't believe we pick up, I believe they drop off.
Drop off, you know,
Even
and
like Jim Wells area, like.
I believe the
West
county
side
has like
is-
a, oh, I don't know about the west side.
We don't
The
pick up.
county has, you would have to call your precinct, because my parents had to deal with this actually a couple weeks ago. They live right outside the city limits. They had to call their precinct, and actually with their particular situation, they couldn't get anybody from the county to go out there for 3 weeks. It was either to have the county pay the city to go out there, or they would have to go and drop off the dog somewhere.
So they said that the county would have to pay the city to go pick it up.
That's what I was told.
Have they ever actually paid the city to go pick it up?
That's why I'm saying there's only 1,000 allotted.
They never went out
You know what I
there,
mean? So, I mean,
that
I guess that
wasn't-
brings to question, and I hate to
Are we
question into what's going on over there, but maybe it should be brought up that if they're going to be saying that they're charging somebody, the county's charging somebody to do this because they having to pay the city, we need
And
to
then
see
we're
if,
not getting paid.
and we're not getting paid. We need to look into
We
that.
need to collect.
Yeah.
I would like
So-
to really visit that because I feel like our pound needs a lot of work.
And that's-
See, I don't know, where we can budget something more, Michael? Cut some thing in that area, because I do feel like that is one that gets so overlooked because they don't have a voice. I just feel like there was,
They did have a few requests on the
yes, for the
cavalry. I
cavalry, I saw that, and I would like to see us do that. There was a tiny, tiny portion going to the care of the animals.
I believe they did work out something too with the local vet to help with that.
Expanded.
Well, no, with the, I think the
cost of
euthanasia.
Oh. Yeah, I just feel like that's a very overlooked area, and it does fall under public safety, police in particular. And we do have, how many employees over there? That's
Right now, we only have 2.
two,
We have two.
but we have budgeted for 4?
Yeah, we only have 2 budgeted this year, but what we do have on page 49,
We have 3 budgeted, right?
Oh.
It's 2 budgets.
2 budgeted. There,
One is not funded.
Okay, gotcha.
one's not funded yet.
And then we have somebody that oversees it as well, right? That is not in this, doesn't get coded
No,
under
he's
here?
in support,
He's in support.
which is 0143611.
What page is that? What is it?
The support is, it begins on page 40. That's your function sheet. The lieutenant for support is also the lieutenant for human services.
Okay, so that lieutenant right there, under that annual salary, oversees
The humane department.
humane department and support services, which would entail crossing guards, which we don't have any,
And
staff
dispatch.
training. And what was the other?
He also oversees dispatch and the clerks there.
Okay.
He is
My-
considered civil service too, so just,
Civil service, but that's
I'm just mentioning that.
and the benefit of. Yeah, I just would like to see, like, you know, back in the good old day when you punch the clock and you show that you're working this much for this department. Like, I don't know if that's feasible or what, but I just feel like the humane area, the city's animal area, it really, really, really needs. Yeah.
Well,
It's at 10.
let's take that back and see if we can look at that.
Just to kind of
See if we can-
accountability in that department. I know it's a small staff. However, we do have a person in charge of it that maybe could, and then maybe, I had seen animal care is $5,000. What does animal care, consist of?
It's for food, if they, everything, pretty much food is what gets covered.
It's 437.
And are they on call?
I believe so.
Because there's overtime there. But I'm
Yes.
sure that it calls for overtime and they have to go in.
Sometimes I believe they do get called, and they do go. Yes, it's mainly food, cat litter,
Euthanasia supplies.
some euthanasia supplies. That's a bulk of it. A majority, sorry. They do also buy, I guess, some of the supplies to disinfect and things like that.
And there may need to be some more, a few improvements that can be done over there through capital expenditures. We have a little bit of money there that are on this 300,000 that we could probably add a little bit to make it a little bit nicer and clean it up some.
Yeah.
And it may not take much. I mean, you know, we've got somebody that can do some of those improvements also. This general maintenance technician can go over there and do a lot of things as well.
That would be good. I just feel like it's kind of overlooked and our main concern is euthanizing and, which I get it, I understand. I don't know. I'm an animal lover. Now on our police patrol on page 46, is that accurate? 20 police officers?
There's 20 patrol officers.
There is on the ground? 20.
Yes, because we had just hired 5 or 6 and that completed it, yes.
I'm gonna switch gears just real quick if you don't mind. Something that I actually like to see that y'all had done a little bit different right now is looking at 9C, going way back here to income, interfund transfers. I noticed that incoming transfers from the utility and solid waste, we're actually reducing them by 119,000, and I like to see that we didn't stay with that just under $2 million number, that we're actually bringing that down. So thank you for doing that, because that leaves a little bit of more money behind in those funds every year moving forward. I know that there's times where we have to, what's that old saying? We rob Peter to pay Paul, right? But when we can leave a little chicken feed behind, so that they can continue to grow. This is a good thing. This is improvement for our city, saying that, hey, we're going to see a little bit of extra in our general fund, even with giving back some.
Right.
So thank you for staying on top of that as well. I know that we need it, and it's standard practice to take money out of both of those funds, because those are, profitable funds, and they're there to help the city and to move forward. But leaving these monies behind will also help us benefit when those funds themselves, or those equipment, assets, or whatever, need repairs and maintenance. So Thank you for staying on top of that without us having to tell you, hey, let's cut that back a little bit because we're seeing more money in other places. So just a little nod to you guys for staying on top of that.
If you guys look at page 36. Halfway down, we have line item 5632, legal municipal court judge. We're going to add a line item there. We have our city attorney duties have been split for a while, where we have a city prosecutor and a city attorney, and at one time it was one and the same person. Very different roles, don't really relate to each other, and so we're going to have a line item there, and that'll be presented at the next one. It kind of gets to our organizational chart also on some of the changes to add a position that's already there called city prosecutor. And that way it'll kind of be clear that our city attorney is our city attorney for us, you guys, and the city on that end, and the municipal court work is done by the city prosecutor. It doesn't have any fiscal impact because it's separate duties, but it was all under one line item, and I wanted to separate that so we can clearly have the two different people doing those things.
Same monies, right?
And so on the org chart, it's on your handout. I think it's on the bottom of the handout.
Smaller one.
Yeah, the smaller handout. The last page, I believe. Yeah. There's some things that we did here to kind of make operations quite a bit smoother and more efficient. But just on the top, we did move city prosecutor over to the line where municipal court judge is. They are together. That's kind of its own department. That's something that's new. Another thing that changed is we did move human resources from under the city manager over under finance. You talked about that before. One of the bigger changes that we did here is under library, parks and recreation. We're adding the administrative services of parks, the recreation department, and the golf course, and the multi-use under the library director. And so that's going to be everything except maintenance, any kind of grounds maintenance. What we did is moved all the airport maintenance, the library maintenance, parks maintenance, golf course maintenance, multi-use maintenance under the Public Works, and changed the title Public Works Maintenance Operations. That was an assistant director position, moving it up to director position of Public Works and Maintenance Operations. That keeps everything in a way your workforce that are doing all the streets and repairs and golf course and parks kind of under one umbrella. And what it allows is for a lot easier cross training. If we have any type of emergency situations, then everybody's under one umbrella working for one person, and that one person is directing that traffic. Anything that's having to do with, even the sharing of equipment, when we separate those things, a lot of times they become two completely separate departments like they've been. Put them together, it eases a lot of operations and does help with cross training. And so that's kind of a big change that we're doing to make us more efficient and make us better prepared for any kind of emergency. And there's times when some places are slower than others, and depending on the time of the year, and that allows those employees to be under one umbrella and go to the different places.
And what will that employee count become underneath that department?
I didn't have that.
Plus or minus?
Victor, how many employees do you think that's going to add under you?
It's gonna be, well, I think, it's gonna be around 70 employees altogether.
Altogether 70?
And that's across streets, solid waste, yada.
Not solid waste. Or is it solid waste? Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was there already. Garage was there already, street was there already. So really, you're only actually gonna take in the 7 or 8 employees that we had under the parks.
The parks, the golf course.
Oh, and the golf, well,
The golf course.
what is it, 2 from the golf course or 3 from the golf course?
4, right? The golf course.
4?
20 more. It's about 20 more.
It's about 20? And then I noticed that now with that library / parks and rec admin, community development has changed as well.
Yes. We're moving, in engineering and inspection and codes is staying there, moving grants over there under community development and adding, which the social media and public broadcasting. These are very big things that for our city, they've just been kind of, they're there, but they're not labeled as things that need to be done. And we're really trying to focus on public broadcasting, Channel 1300, and this puts a real big emphasis on that. Our social media and website, we've really have one person that's full-time in IT, and he's here. So right now, we can't do anything with our website if we need to update it. Anytime that Jim's out working on an issue, then we can't do some of these things. Yeah, we have additional duties for community development as far as social media, but they're just those additional duties are on the side, by the way, when you have time. Those kind of things. Here, I want those things to be focused solely on that. And, they could kind of fall under information technology. But these are the things that we really need to focus on. That's why they're moved over and being actual line item things.
I wonder if we could combine those two. Social media,
well,
public broadcasting.
yeah, and we're not talking about, they are, I mean, but we're not talking about like a person for each or anything like that. So they're separate things, but they're done by the
Whomever.
community development, right? Just keeping them separate because they're a little bit different, but a little bit the same. So Channel 1300 should be probably touched every day.
Yeah.
Jim, right? If we're really focusing on it with the things that we're planning on doing. We're doing bid openings on it. We hopefully will be able to get the school board meetings on Channel 1300 and the county. I know that there was discussion with the superintendent, and he was interested in that. We need to start.
A&M Agriculture wanted to be a part of our
Right.
broadcast.
AgriLife wants to be a big part of it as well. So that is a daily thing that needs to be touched, like social media, like our website.
Is that a new position, or are you incorporating?
It's just incorporated as far as duties that kind of need to be done. And but it's the social media public broadcasting is not necessarily a new position. It's just
It just needs to have focus,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, instead of it being a stipend, it'll become a responsibility.
Mhm.
Yeah, not a title per se.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
So then IT is all up there by itself.
right.
And at one point, we had talked about, and I think you and I had this conversation, but if you can explain it again to me. The airport itself, we were talking about moving underneath maybe community development, under parks, but there's something in our ordinance, our city charter that says that the airport has to be a director's position, has to be its own. Explain it again to me, because we had talked about moving it down underneath somebody. Now, that's not to say that the same person who's running one department can't also oversee that department, but there's not a lot going on there.
Right. I mean, the airport really, I think the charter does talk about the airport manager, doesn't it? I think it does. In the absence of an airport manager, the airport manager is, in essence, the airport manager. We've had people be that. It's always been an additional duty. I know for a few years we had somebody that was specifically that, but that changed somewhere in the past, 5 or 6 years. But the overseeing of a lot of the operations there are the FBO, the fixed base operator, and so the airport manager is mainly kind of overseeing that, the collections of the rent and FAA.
Water
Yeah,
sampling.
and the water sampling that we have somebody handling. AARC is doing that water sampling, so.
And I guess my primary question is why do we, with how little that it actually is to actually manage that now, why do we have it alone? Why don't we have it roped up underneath, like, you know, like you said, like community development, public works, parks? Because we're dictated to do it by charter?
It just says that I think Jim just turned my microphone up. It just says that there is hereby created the office of manager of the airport who shall be under the immediate jurisdiction and control of the city manager.
Okay.
The airport manager shall be appointed by the city manager subject to confirmation of city council and county commissioners court, and shall receive his services for his services such compensation as the council may fix.
So it says they answer directly to the city manager, so putting it under somebody else doesn't necessarily make it. Okay. That's I think that's kind of what you explained the other day, but I didn't quite understand.
And the only one that we have on this org chart that could move would be IT. IT has been under finance at times, but of course the city clerk and the airport manager, those are kind of the two that HR has gone back and forth, I believe, at times, and IT has gone back and forth. And you know, the human resources, we're also trying to have the communication under one director as far as between the payroll and the human resources and a lot of things where they interact when it comes to maybe TML claims, things of that sort, to have that under the same umbrella. Doesn't have to be. Roland and I have talked about that several times on you know, whether it should go down to finance or stay under the city manager, and it's not a real big deal either way. But we decided we wanted to try it out, moving it under there.
And I've seen, like we talked about, we've seen that a lot.
Mhm.
A lot.
Yeah.
Where that's just a standard. I like the direction this is moving personally.
Michael, on the city prosecutor, at times this, depending on the city attorney, if he chooses to have a city prosecutor, right? That's in our, is it in our charter or what is it?
In the past, it's been one and the same. The charter just says we have to have a city attorney that represents the city, practicing in the city of Alice, and shall represent the city in all litigation, shall be the legal advisor of an attorney and counsel for the city and all officers and departments thereof. Now, goes on to say that they can appoint an assistant. A lot of times, the assistant has been in case the city attorney is not here. And then at times the assistant has been, well, let's appoint an assistant to be the city prosecutor. Before, it's the city attorney is the city prosecutor, dual roles. It's working real well, not having the city attorney being tied up. How often do that in municipal court? How many?
Twice a month.
Twice a month?
Yeah.
And
Christina prepares probably 10 days a month for municipal court, and then is available when she gets phone calls and whatnot throughout the rest of the month.
And so, money-wise, it's not. It doesn't change what we do, but it would be something that you know I would look for, in for like the October 1 to kind of clarify from the council that we're going to go ahead and appoint a city prosecutor, and we'll have that role, and it'll be independent. In the past, if there's changes to city attorney, there's been, what do we do with city prosecutor because municipal court's tomorrow. Here, that's a totally separate position, and city attorney is totally separate. And it actually, it's a new change that we've had, and it's actually working really well. But yeah, fiscally, it doesn't have an impact because it's already being paid for that way. If you guys want to talk about the one thing that happened, we did remove on page 180 on the hot funds. Vanessa, the 41,000 that we took out, where are we looking at that?
Forward that.
That was, I believe, on
Oh, there it is.
I'm
Page
sorry.
180B.
yes, I had originally put it in and then.
Right. On 180B, you notice it under events. 18 was adopted, 41,000, and the revised was 43,655. And that was from that last event that we approved, that there was still money in that fund that we're able to add the additional money to that. But on the proposed, I have I left that out. Those are all the events that come to the chamber, then come to us for the additional monies. And I know that there had been talk about how to allocate that, whether you wanted to continue allocating those things or look at something different as far as grant situations and things of that sort. So Vanessa had left that in, but we took it out so we could, so you guys can decide if you even want to have that there for this coming fiscal year, or just look at a different process.
I think Mr. Christopher talked about the grant thing.
Yeah, so the idea that I had, and we had talked about it once before, and I think that it needs to be brought before council once we figure out exactly the way we need to do it, is maybe to make some adjustments to how this is handled. The other professional services, the 160 that we send out right now currently to the chamber. The idea that I had is that we approach this in a grant process, increase that number from, let's say, 41,000. What was it, 41.5 or what is it? I'm sorry. 41 to 50, and in doing so, we actually reduce the 160 that we send out to 150. Okay, and say it's a complicated process, but just bear with me for a second. They apply for a grant, and if you get a grant from us, that's 5 or 6 less people that can go over there and get the $1,800. So that's where that $10,000 shift comes in, okay? But we make it $50,000. Everybody applies all at once. This is why it's going to be a process, because we have to change the mentality of the people who want this money. But everybody applies at once, and the council would award according to a scale, some kind of a chart that says, this is what we can do and this is what we should do according to what you actually put heads in beds, the longevity, the community, the whatever scale that is put forward by the council. But I think that number should be adjusted to 50 and reduce the 160 to 150 and make that adjustment there.
What does that account for, the 160? Is there an itemized or no?
That's the budget
They send us a budget, I believe they come maybe around January, and he'll provide a budget of how he's going to use the money that we send them.
I want to say 36 or something of it was allocated towards the 1,800 or so. I can't remember the number off the top of my head.
Administrative cost, billboard and advertising, and
portion of utilities. I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, it's a itemized chart that they give out.
They include salary, even I think advertisement.
But it's a different process because it's administrative professional fees. So we had a legal discussion about that one as well. That it's not actual salary.
Oh.
It's administrative fees. So, but you know, to make that shift. So in my mind, that would be the adjustment that I would make moving forward. I'll leave it to y'all to discuss that. But I do have other things that I'd like to talk about once we figured out something on this one.
Yeah, what I'd like to have is kind of a clearer direction from you guys when we come back on the 11th, kind of for the adoption on what to put on here that you guys want to see on how, and the process we can have it. We don't have to have the process in place. We just have to have an idea of what we need to develop for you guys. But the funding part, we do
I
need
would
to
like
have.
to see like what exactly these expenses are. Like operating supplies, is that from us or from?
That was us, I can look that up. And,
Yeah, all of this in here, with the exception of the only thing that goes out is the 160.
Right.
The rest of that is us in-house.
And the events is new or what?
No.
No, the events is what's been all there all this time. The money we give away. to-
8,200.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is I want to limit our exposure, because as this thing continues to grow, right now we have very few that come in, but if they see an open door policy, who's not to say in 5 years we got 30 people applying for the 8,200? If we do the grant process, we limit our exposure to $50,000 a year, max. We're done. You know, and the best events in town, I'm not saying the best events, the most qualified events in town receive the money.
The ones that truly put beds in heads and beds
Yeah, and that-
to replenish this fund.
Be the
That's
number
my
one
concern.
qualifier.
Yeah.
So.
And
Sure
proof
that
of it, which means they have a history of doing this, you know, not just whoever.
And that would be the grading process that we as a council could work on. We can get staff to help us, as you know, to put together some kind of a grading process for everybody that applies. The same way we do when we send out these RFQs, you know, is basically how we start evaluating these applications. So.
Mayor, I was gonna let you know, some of the things that were bought with that money, they bought those Welcome to Downtown banners.
Oh, okay.
And then they bought some more Christmas lights.
So see, that's where I'm like, no, because we had 160 over here, other professional that we say is in there, but then we spent that too. I don't like it. I just don't like it. It's too messy, and it's not, you know, we're saying the other professional goes into banners and this and that, but then they're over here under operating.
Well, the other professional, that is just a check to the chamber. Now,
They
he
administer.
uses it. Yeah.
So
he
why
uses
can't we have like something that says we're advertising? I don't see enough with this fund. I don't see enough, Alice. I would like to see this, like, council decide, you know, we want so much of this money, which is the intention of this fund, is to advertise Alice and to sell Alice. So I would like council to decide, you know what, we feel that we're gonna have an advertising budget for this fund that says every year we're gonna spend $100,000 on advertising, and that's TV, that's billboards, that's banners, that's anything that's advertising. That's just how I do in business. Like, I have an advertising fund, and it's not from here and here, it's advertising. So I know that I've put this much into putting my businesses out there, and I think we as a city deserve that, to advertise our city. So I would like to see it real clear and concise. I mean, it's no secret. I just don't like the way it's kind of just been thrown together quickly, and, oh, just code it here, just do this, just do that, but then they're doing something else, and then we're like, oh, no, but I did advertise. Okay, did you spend $500 or $50 or $10,000 or what? You know, there's no, you know, and I think this council would agree that it would be nice to organize it, and that way it's a clear expectation of the fund.
And I can say that there is a budget produced every month from the chamber. Every meeting that I go to, they get an updated budget. I'm sorry I don't have it on me. I could have maybe presented it to you.
I'll go down right now, and this will equal the 160. The professional fees is $1,500. Signage and billboards is $19,000. Office supplies is $2,300. Winter Texan fish fry is $800. Bank charges are $100. Grants and sponsorships $30,000. Advertising and marketing $51,500. Dues and publications $4,800. Telephone $1,200. Postage $2,500. Utilities $2,700. Group insurance $7,000. Building maintenance $500. Travel and trade shows $2,200. travel expense $1,700, meeting, training expense $3,300, payroll tax $2,800, computer hardware software maintenance is $100, and salaries is $26,000.
See their salaries again.
Yeah, that equals $160,000.
You said winter Texan fish fry?
Yeah, and now
When was
this was a 17 budget.
That's in the valley, that's not here. That's the stuff that, yeah, they go down the valley.
Well, no, we used to have a winter Texan fish fry here.
So why is it in there if we haven't done
That's
it?
2017.
Oh, actually, this is, well,
didn't
this
do
was
it
sent
last year.
2018 CBB budget.
Oh, yeah.
Done it in
approved.
years.
Yeah.
That was a proposed 2018, is what this was.
But winter Texans don't even come here anymore. I mean, they don't. We used to have these parks and stuff, and they would come. We did.
Yeah, no, we had a winter
I
Texan
just
fish fry
really
every year.
want transparency in this
Yeah.
fund, and I don't get it. I've asked for an
But-
audit
and-
over and
and-
over, and I don't get it, and I'm just a little perturbed by it.
And Tina and I have been working on. She's got the audit already worked on. We just need to go visit with the chamber after all this got finished, the budget and everything. Then we're going to go over there and sit with him, because we do have to sit with Juan, because the direction from you guys was to come up with a couple of options to have them continue, and we need to revise the contract with them. That's one thing we have to do for sure, and that would be also if we continue the relationship with them. The second option is to try to bring it in house. Now, this budget, of course, is proposing, because we're still under contract till January 1st.
Right.
So I've got to keep this proposed like we're continuing our relationship. But this is something that we work on, October 2nd,
Right.
after we get everything approved. So, yeah.
But in
And,
order to approve the budget, we need to kind of have a, because if those things change, to me, if that changes and this changes, and I just feel like we're behind already again.
Yeah, and we'll, and if something changes drastically, we can come in and do an amendment on the budget. But as far as having the funds specifically in this, we know that we won't spend more than what we're spending now, probably, anyway.
What are they, I'm sorry to ask, what is the fund that they had, how much do they have for the, what do they call it, scholarships, or what do they call it? There, where they give out the 1,800?
Oh, 30,000.
See, my proposal for this budget, until we have a solution, they would have to reduce that by, 20, and then we would take that 10 back on and add it to our grant process. And that would be because the 5 people that would normally go in and get that 1,800 aren't getting that 1,800 now, because they got a grant. So my proposal for moving forward on this until we have a solution over there is change the 160 to 150, and that would be a $10,000 adjustment to their scholarships or grants, and then ours would go to $50,000 for the events, and we would have to very quickly in the next month or so establish a grant process, which I think can be done. I mean, we're not really rebuilding, redesigning, redefining anything. This is the same process that's used by a lot of cities, and we could utilize their process for this type of thing.
And I think
We
this
can make
council
more
has
line
a
items
different.
To make it clear for you too.
Yeah, I think that would be, because
It's
I just.
This one was kind of one where it used to just be, we would send to the chamber and then
Right.
they would use their money. So this is kind of new, but we can make it as detailed as we do the other departments.
Yeah, we probably should use what we have on the budget so we can, what they have on the budget that they propose. But Councilman Chris, you were saying 30,000 is for grants and sponsorships, right?
Yeah, but you got to remember that their budget adjusts. They can make their adjustment moving forward in January if we decide to continue the partnership with them.
But
Yeah,
is that-
because their
is
budget
that-
is set in January.
Is that 30,000 included in that 160?
Yes.
Okay, so then why wouldn't we just take it all out and put it under events? And then just leave it under other professional as it should be, to be a little clearer, and then just take what you're
Well,
saying and put
because
it all
in
together.
my opinion right now, that our true expert in the city on that tax code is Juan. He does a lot of training. He reviews a lot. He carries a tax code with him at all time. We rely upon him. We don't have an in-house tax code expert. I mean, yeah, I've got a phone number for a guy, but The thing is that
It's not
they're the
that
first,
hard, though.
they're the first line, and it's already in our ordinance that it goes to them first.
Is it?
Yes.
It's not.
It is in our ordinance that it goes to them first, and then they bring it to us for the other 8,200. For the
I
other
just feel like
8,200.
We would owe it to our citizens to be transparent and say, this is how much we spend on events. And then this is the other professional that goes into salaries and paper and copies and whatever it is that we're paying that. I just would like to see it very clear that this is how much we're spending on events. And mind you, this is how much we're spending on hard items like a mobile stage, a amphitheater, whatever, I just feel like that would be a little more transparent than other professional and then having some other ones in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does,
Where we
but I
just
think that having them administer and going over the 40 or 50 minor applications that they kick in and kick out and don't go through, having to bring to every one of those to council or what have you is I mean, that's why you pay professional people to do their job professionally, is to keep the smaller things away from you. And that's why that is. That's a lot of the smaller things that are $300, $200, $600, and they're all accounted for.
Could we separate that and do a different line, like what Mr. Crisp is saying, like we do, okay, they continue to do the smaller ones or whatever, and we just kind of separate other professional and then break it
On our budget?
on theirs, like would we be able
They
to or
do.
no? It would just, we have to do a big chunk to them and spend it how you want.
I mean, we would need them to separate that a little bit more, but,
Well, it's separated there, but what I think she's asking is what we need to start seeing, and what we request if you continue the services is, we need to start getting a monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly budget, the same way that y'all give us a financial report.
Yeah.
We start seeing it from them. We do see it every month in the chamber, I mean, in the chamber board meetings. That needs to migrate into the council meetings also. So that's one of the things, if we move forward with them as an agreement, that 160 will now monthly or bi-monthly or whatever,
Be able to
start
account for that.
seeing their budget, their financial report, the same way we get it from Roland
And
and
maybe
his
if we get it
department.
monthly, we can show from this check, this much went to advertising, this much went
Yes.
to, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then you might have your breakdown, so that if the mayor or myself or any of the other council members, Michael, whoever says, hey,
much do we
break down, professional services, it's a report, go and we can move forward from there. But I don't think the answer would be a lot of you trying to go through and figure it out. It's more along the lines of them coming in and explaining it to us. So I think
Because
that.
it is a service provided, and this is City of Alice money. It's not Chamber of Commerce money, it's City of Alice money. And I think, in the spirit of transparency, the citizens do deserve that, to know where these funds are going.
And I think that's an easy step to do, is have them come in and start explaining. So heck, we could have them start coming in at the next regularly scheduled meeting. Well, I mean, that's the budget meeting, but even then, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just come in and the same way you present it to the board, present it to the council. Be done with it.
Who oversees and directs the chamber, like Juan and Guy, like just in
The
direction?
board. Excuse me, the executive directors.
Sorry?
The executive directors, there's a
Chamber
board.
board, right?
Yeah, there's a good-sized board. So,
But the last time, the board hadn't approved what we got, and I got that from a board member. So that's where my concern is.
Which one was that?
The last budget that was presented to us wasn't approved by.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, I wasn't there.
Nobody saw it, but it was approved by the board.
Mayor, to answer your question about what's in the ordinance, you all are both correct. There's not a specific statement saying that funds will be given to the chamber. We do have a separate agreement, a contract for that. However, there is, in the ordinance, there is specific discussion about applications being made to the chamber and how much money the chamber can be given out. So I'd say it's contemplated.
So it's the 18, the 5, and then the
Yes.
8,200.
Which was done
That
couple
was
years ago.
done, a few years ago, Mayor, yes.
And that's why, like I said, is that was in its infancy, and in my vision, for the most part, that kind of just goes away with this new grant process. That ordinance would be no longer because we'd be doing a grant. So there would be no need for you to sign off
Yeah,
on 5,000 and us to approve that.
We reference that ordinance whenever each one of those events come up.
Yes.
You know, we're talking about ordinance, I was thinking the 160 total and the agreement with them.
No,
No.
that
What I'm-
little one.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, that was the work in progress, and I think we've grown, and the vision for this fund has also grown into a bigger picture, a more concrete picture, I think. And I think that's where this is a time to just make changes.
So,
I hate to try to push ahead, but, just time-wise, and I don't know who else has something scheduled for 11 o'clock. But can I make a point real quick of some of the other things that I'd like to see?
on the hot funds, yeah.
On the hot funds.
One
and
thing we
then-
want to talk about is, I know that some people may want to attend,
Yes, that's what I'm,
is it
Yeah,
at
so-
11? But,
so-
yeah.
Yeah, so if we can just run through these real quick, so these are items that you can maybe address, and the council can say, hey, no, or whatever. But some of the things that I like to see is, we last year we purchased banners for downtown, and these are the ones that the city basically purchases, because the chamber focuses outside of the city, outside of the county, but the city itself, we purchased these downtown banners. I'd like to see more of those and try to do that seasonal, out of hot funds. Those monies come out of hot funds. I don't know if you've seen them. Those are the small ones that hang up, I think. So I had in for about $5,000 and excuse me, and those banners.
Fund 20, just to
Yeah,
be
this is
clear.
all hot funds money. This is no taxpayer dollars in this one here. These are all things that have been approved, that I have talked to the hotel. Sorry, these cards are thick. Texas Hotel and Lodging Association's General Counsel about. So there's really no question on whether or not we can do these. It's to the extent of how we can use them, and then, of course, we're going to fall upon our city attorney for his judgment as well. And I think I spoke to him about most all these anyway. So, billboards is one that I think the mayor agrees with. These would be something that outside of the chamber, that the city themselves, the council and staff and this marketing person or whoever can figure out where best we can be served to put up additional billboards. Additional signage, that one is very questionable how we can spend it, but together, your $10,000 for billboards, $10,000 for signage. Signage would help us get some of those street signs or the little signs that point, Anderson Park, the golf course, things like of that nature. The next one is one of the bigger items that I had. This is not only to increase everything, but decrease our employee usage and safety, would be a mobile stage. The idea on this one is a $90,000 investment. This is a stage relatively the same size as what we have, except it takes about an hour to tear down and set up. It also comes with signage, which we can sell advertising on or extend the rent if we decide to rent this out. Now, this is a stage that you hook up to the ball hitch of a standard F-150 pickup truck. It's not even you don't need a gooseneck. You don't need a brush truck to try to set up the stage. If it's set up on Friday, it's torn down and used on Friday. It can be torn down in 2 hours afterwards or the next day. Right now, if the event is Friday, it's set up Thursday, it's used Friday. Saturday, our employees don't necessarily work, so it's not torn down Saturday. It's not torn down Sunday because they don't work, and then it's torn down on Monday. That is not the fault of the employees. That is just because of our schedule. Now, that means that our street is closed for an excessive number of days. This would allow for it to happen a lot quicker, to move in, move out. Plus, it also opens up the idea that this stage can now be used in our practice fields, in the new sporting recreational complex that we have at the multi-use complex, and all it takes is a pickup truck to pull it over there and turn it on. So that would be one thing that I would recommend. This can be purchased through hot funds, also without any without question is performing arts. I've contacted a couple of different companies. Now, this would be the job of the city to actually procure it, whether it's through Buy Board or Texas Retailer Association or whatever it is. I know that the ones that I spoke to specifically were on, I think, both of them. So the next one would be the $50,000 for events. The next one is an Anderson Park issue that I have is some of the old playground equipment. I would like to propose getting rid of some of that equipment, and how we can utilize hot funds is we have a lot of playscapes out there. Let's take some music equipment, somewhat like we have at the library, and put it where kids actually are. playing when their moms are walking, maybe pulling up a playscape and putting some music equipment there along the same lines of what we have at the library. And then that allows us to pay for it out of hot funds, and we don't have to hit the general fund. The next one is also performing arts, is improvements to the gazebo. We utilize it a lot for music right now. Music in the park. Every now and then you just have the churches go out there and so forth. It is a performing arts stage. $15,000 would do a world of difference to that facility. The next two are preparation for sporting events. We already did a huge chunk for our ball fields this season. We haven't really started that because of they're actually playing on them. But as soon as they finish, we can start. I'd like to add an additional $60,000 in the next year's budget. That'll give us roughly 200-ish, I can't remember exactly the number, which will basically completely revamp our fields so that next year when we host these softball tournaments, these baseball tournaments, when Corpus Christi cancels and we have people here for 4 days for our events, we have facilities that we can be very proud of. These facilities will last us 10 years for a $200,000 investment. We're good to go. And then I'm looking at $50,000 to $70,000 for the PAGA. Now, we haven't locked that in, if I'm not mistaken, but I'd like to budget it in case we do. This is also a huge sporting event that we could have 300 golfers come through the city of Alice. And this $50,000 to $70,000 isn't going to make our golf course look like Pebble Beach, but it can get us a long way to looking really nice for this event, and it'll be a head start moving forward after that event.
It already looks fabulous, by the way.
Oh, it is looking really good.
Great job, Mr.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So many
the-
compliments. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the pictures look good. I've been out there. It's great work. But this alone will help us, sure up the greens, make sure that we have everything we need to move forward. And again, if we do not get the event, we adjust it back out. We don't spend it. But this allows for the money to be there in case we do get the event, which is actually looking pretty promising from what I hear.
Yep.
So that's the extent of the funds that I'd like to see through hot funds. Yes, it adds up to a large sum of money.
Do you have that number?
Not off the top of my head. Give me 1 second.
351,000?
Roughly. I was at 350 is the number, plus or minus, depending on what we go with some of those things. And the reason it seems like a huge number, it's not tax dollars. Remember that. It doesn't come out of our taxpayers' funds. It will bring people to town. It is performing arts. It is everything that it qualifies for. And yes, it's roughly 10% of our balance. But then again, it's only 10% of our balance, and we're making difference for years to come with equipment and improvements that we're making here. So, and we're leaving a healthy balance for years to come. So in 20 years or 10 years, when those ball fields need to be revamped again, we're sitting there on another $200,000 and $300,000 that we can just throw at them and get them fixed. So.
Thank you, Mr. Crisp. Yes, and these are things, what I've been saying, we do things to continue on, not just these little things that don't continue on. So thank you for the input.
Is that something, we can put that, we have it already kind of in a format, so I can bring that forward also if that's something y'all want to act on at the.
I mean, was there anything there that y'all disagree with, that y'all don't think that we should hit at this time, or I mean, again, I only bring it forward in such a huge number because it isn't taxpayer dollars. It's hot fund money that we can utilize to improve the quality of life for everybody and draw people into town. So.
I think they're good.
Do any of the stages have a covering?
They're all covered. They're all covered. The ones that I talked to, they're double-sided, so that you not only do you have a cover that goes up and down, but you can as well as leave a side down for rain protection and so forth and so on. You can completely close the stage for transportation. They've got front, I say front and back, which actually would be left and right. You've got the rear of the stage, the front of the stage. It all closes up to look like an enclosed trailer. And then once you turn your generator on and hit the hydraulics, everything folds out and goes out. And for $100,000, $90,000 to $100,000, you have your stage set up by 2 people in an hour and a half. And that's obviously, they know what they're doing. So call it 2.5 hours. You know what I mean? Max, not half a day, not a whole day tearing and breaking down stages and potentially putting our employees at risk by using equipment that may not be best suit the job, which they've mastered using by this point to do the job, but it's not necessarily the best equipment for the
But
job.
it does take a
It
long
takes
time.
time, yeah.
To get that up and.
About working smarter. Very good.
And we can rent it out.
Mhm.
And we can rent it out and earn back some of the money. And right now, we have the potential to rent the stage for $800 a day, but nobody wants it because it actually costs us more than that to set it up and tear it down. We get it back through the hot fund money, through, what do you call it, the in-kind services. But to actually say, Our Lady Guadalupe has their event way over here, do they want to use it? No, because tear it up, tear it down. But this one, we can easily rent it out and go set it up and let them use it for the day. Instead of calling, who is it, Budweiser, who rents their stage out for $20,000 a day or whatever it is. So, big difference.
Thank you, Mr. Crystal. Council, Ms. Carrasco, anything to add? Mr. Murph?
Yep.
Mr. Molina?
The only thing I had, one last thing, I apologize, Michael, or Roland, on, I don't know if we were gonna talk about the debt service or not, but I saw that 161 on the multi-use. That just kind of popped up.
What page is that?
I apologize, 157.
7.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the ones that y'all said we're gonna have to transfer in to account for it paying its own debt.
Yes,
Yeah.
for the tax note.
Oh, you're, okay.
They're just
You're
trying
talking about
to
the
show that there
64,
was a
7,
tax
right?
note that was related to the
157.
to the multi-use center, so this is kind of like the multi-use center paying a portion of their debt.
Which we hadn't allocated in the past, right? This is the first year, and this is why it's jumping up to, what did we say the multi-use is gonna show now as a,
The transfer to debt service alone is $96,894.
That's debt service, yeah, that's a portion of the debt service from the multi-use. And the 64.7 is the administrative.
Did you do the
costs.
water, Michael? Is that?
Oh, yeah,
showing?
we did come up, what was the water?
About 20,000.
About
How much?
20,000.
From the beginning till now, like
From-
20,000.
20,000.
Right.
you're talking about from the beginning of the year or from the beginning of
From
concept?
2016.
From 2016?
And what is the total debt service that we're paying that this next year?
Yeah, because that's only a portion of it.
Right.
Right, yeah.
That was the
The
tax
actual
note that was
payment,
refunded.
yes, the actual payment is $261,875. That's the full payment
That's what we're paying next year, right?
from the debt service fund, yes.
Yeah, that's the total debt service payment. We're using 37% because we're following the same, the general fund does pay some utility fund debt service. And we're following that same ratio. So it's, the multi-use isn't, our transfer is not covering the whole debt service payment.
Right. Just want to make sure. That's all I had.
Okay.
Effective.
Back on the 11th, September 11th. If council doesn't have any other questions, comments, complaints? Okay. Adjourn and or consider and act upon adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This meeting is adjourned. The time is 10:37. Thank you.
Gotta get it close down.
Is Josh here?